Hey, it's Rebecca. Welcome to Returning, a podcast to return to yourself and the wisdom within. I'm so glad you're here with me. Thanks for returning. Today, I am returning with coach, author, and speaker Amy Taylor-Kabbaz. I've known Amy for about a decade now and have always loved her special way of articulating big concepts with generosity, and also her undeniable passion of everything she does. She has been supporting mothers for many, many years now, and she is really a beautiful bundle of smart and heart. I've really been wanting to have this very conversation with her for many years now, and so I'm really happy to be able to share it with you. We delve into all things matrescence. Just as adolescence heralds change, matrescence refers to the profound changes of motherhood. So it's not just the physical and hormonal changes, but also the deep shifts within us, within identity, values, beliefs, and whether you're a parent yourself, whether you're longing to be, or if you're just keen to explore these lost rites of passage, which I really believe are necessary to be honored in our society. This conversation really has it all. And so, yeah, regardless of whether you're a mother, a father, a parent, long to be one, or just know any mother in the world, I think that this is a really important conversation. And as always, at the end of this episode, you'll find a guided soul inquiry for you to explore what our conversation brings up within you. I know how precious your time is, so let's jump right into sacred space together now. In the center of your heart, imagine a beautiful flower, and with your breath, invite it to open petal by petal, revealing a light in the middle. This light is your soul, your ancient self. Invite it to step forward now so we can really connect in with the wisdom within, and together acknowledging the keepers and custodians of the land where I am and where you are, known and unknown. Beautiful, let's begin. Oh, Amy, so good to be with you. It's been a while. We've kind of seen each other through probably around about 10 years, would you say?
Yes, maybe even a little less. So my son is 10 next month. And from memory, I think I was either pregnant with him or he was just born when you and I worked one-on-one together. So
Wow.
it was that long ago. And then we've obviously weaved in and out of each other's lives since then.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, I think you and I spoke last when I just had my son.
Hmm.
Whoa.
Yes.
And yeah, and I mean, you've got such an amazing book as well that I just so loved listening to, which is what I do now that I'm a mum. I've always been a slow reader anyway, so I'm actually not much of a reader, but a listener, oh my gosh, it's so much easier. And yeah, I wanted to just start our conversation for anyone who hasn't heard of matrescence. Can you just begin with like a really simple description of that word and why discovering that word meant so much to you?
So the basic description is matrescence is like adolescence. It is a period of massive physical and hormonal changes, of course, but also changes of our identity, our sense of self, our feelings and opinions and values about things in the world. And it is a period of time that we do not acknowledge in our culture, especially in the way that we acknowledge what motherhood is. I think we are getting better at doing postpartum care, a little better. We've got a long way to go. But what I love about the concept of matrescence is that it acknowledges that it's not that when you give birth, suddenly you know how to be a mother. And it's not at the end of the first year you suddenly know how to do this. It is this constant growth and unraveling and becoming. So that's sort of the technical description. It was first coined by always honouring the women that have come before me. It was first coined by anthropologist Dana Raphael in the 1970s. I don't know if you had a doula present at your births. Yeah, she was the one that also coined the term doula in the 70s because she really, as an anthropologist and a huge supporter of women, looked at what was happening to birthing in America in the 70s and saw how medicalized it was becoming, how
Mm.
low the breastfeeding rates were becoming, how institutionalized the experience was becoming. And she recognized that two things needed to change. One was we needed somebody in the room advocating for the mother, not the baby,
Mm.
and
Mm.
supporting the process of her becoming a mother. And she said that this is a doula's role. And the other thing she recognized was that we don't understand what it takes and how it changes us to become a mother. I think that there's a process here called matrescence, and we need to look at that more. And unfortunately, it was kind of lost in the 70s. It wasn't really taken up until quite recently, really, by a number of amazing people around the world, but in particular, Dr. Aurelie Athan at Columbia University, who was the one who said, I think matrescence is like adolescence. It's this period of transition and growth that we have to start acknowledging differently.
Mm.
And so for me, after going through such a rough time with understanding who I was after my babies, and even doing this work before I even knew what the word was, when I finally heard the word, it was no exaggeration. It was like somebody had finally turned the light on.
So was it for you like an acknowledgement of, because I think it's so complex when you are in postpartum and then, you're in postpartum forever. So it's like, what is postpartum really? But I think that when someone is like, so how are you? It's so my response is always like, it's complex. And I don't really have anything beyond that. I mean, I could say some things, but really and so I want to ask you, one question I have is, from your understanding, like, how do you see matrescence as being different from, I guess, the archetype of going from maiden to mother?
I don't see it that differently. I think it modernizes it and it brings a
Mm.
science to it that the world needs. Um,
Mm.
I was doing this work without realizing I was talking about
Yeah.
matrescence before I heard the word. And
Mm.
nobody was really listening. It was very much in small spiritual women's groups. You know, there was no acknowledgement of it in a corporate space, even in a coaching space, even beyond like your beautiful women's circles. What I think matrescence has given us, because it is now considered to be a science to be studied, we're looking at psychosocial, economic identity shifts. There's amazing research happening. I think it's
Mm.
like this word is acknowledging that thing that we used to acknowledge back in the day, maiden to
Mm.
mother. But it's allowing us to talk about it in those spaces. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it also acknowledges the like things like the hormonal shifts,
Mm-hmm.
the less, I think maiden to mother for me does the archetype and maybe a little bit of the responsibility, in the role of what we see mother is. But yeah, I don't think it acknowledges the physiological change, which is also emotional and hormonal. And obviously, it can affect like so many parts of our life, whether it's like feeling depressed or anxious, or I think the maiden to mother is more like it's more of an age thing and a deepening into my power as a woman and all of that, but it's kind of vague compared to this, because I don't know any mum who can kind of describe the change. And I think this is also like a question I've been really living into with that word matrescence, because it's like, whoa, yes, there's a name for it. At least I can kind of go, here's the word, say talking to my husband or talking to my mom or talking to someone. So you can kind of like put everything in a container. And at the same time, that container doesn't really change anything except for the acknowledgement from other people. And I think when we look at trauma happens when we're alone in really difficult transitions and situations. And so perhaps having that container reduces the kind of like the freezing of the trauma or the causing of the trauma, rather than it being like I'm experiencing something that could be traumatic, but I'm not alone in this because the world acknowledges what I'm going through.
That's exactly what I think this word does. It allows us to go from this individualized experience of becoming a mother, struggling with many different versions of it. You know, some of us struggle around work. We love being a mum, but it's
Yeah.
returning to work that we feel that crack. Others, it's our body. So many women I've coached over the years, it's been, you know, financial
Yeah.
identity shifts, suddenly having to ask their partner for money to get a haircut. And they've been
Yeah.
independent
Yeah.
for 15 years. You know, this word encompasses all of these experiences, but
Mm,
instead of thinking, I'm a bad person, I'm a bad mum, there's something wrong with me, maybe I should just get up earlier, maybe I should just try harder, maybe I should just not share what I'm feeling, it opens this door to saying,
mm,
oh my God, you too? And I remember the biggest part of this for me when I became a mum was this identity. I was so attached to this identity of being a successful woman, a journalist, a like an ambitious, independent woman. I wore that
mm,
independent badge with such fierce attachment.
mm,
And I went into motherhood, obviously not knowing anything about matrescence, and honestly believed it wouldn't change me. I was excited about bringing a baby into my life, but I thought I would still be Amy Taylor-Kabbaz. You know, it was like I would add it to my resume. It was this bonus thing, but everything else would stay the same. And then I suddenly felt so different about my work and wasn't actually sure if I wanted to do that huge career that I had been obsessing about since I was a teenager. I desperately wanted to be a foreign correspondent and I was on my way. And it shocked me how differently I felt about my future when my baby arrived. Like,
mm,
I know that might sound, I don't know, ignorant. It was. I had no idea it would change the way I would feel about everything else. I honestly thought
mm,
I'd be at home for a year with this beautiful baby and then I'd walk back into work. And when I walked back into work, I didn't feel like I wanted to be there, but I also didn't want to be at home. What I've
mm.
seen with this
Oh,
word and
let's
this
go to
work,
that. That's I
yes.
think that's such an important thing to talk about because yeah, like you, I've got a big soul mission, will
Mhm.
continue to. And from my cosmology, I do believe that the kids choose the family, the conditions and all of that. So it's like, yeah, like you know, you don't want to like just be like, oh, I need to like be this whole other person that my child or the world wants me to be, you know. But this in between of like, but I don't like, for me, I do not have, I'm a massive introvert. Both my husband and I are. And I cannot be with my kids all day long. I have plenty of people in my life who I know can, with their kids or you know, but I can't be around anyone that long. It's literally not who I am. And so, but then I also don't want to be at work all the time. So how did you tell me about how that felt for you? Like not wanting to be there, but like did you want to be at home all the time, or
No,
how did you navigate that?
badly, badly, because I had my first baby 15 years ago. She's nearly 16. So,
Wow.
yeah, I know, I can't believe I've got nearly a
Oh my
16-year-old.
gosh.
I wasn't even on Facebook. I wasn't there was no spaces to have any of this conversation. So when I felt that, I call it in my book, the inner split. It's this split between who you used to be and the mother. And it's this, like you literally feel split in two. I don't want to leave you, but I also can't stay with you. And I looked around at the time and honestly thought that there was something wrong with me because that's how I felt. There
Mm,
was no
mm,
spaces or places where this conversation was being had. So I struggled through 9 months of maternity leave with her, holding on, thinking that when I walk back through those doors of the ABC, I'll feel like myself again. And then when I walked through those doors, I was like, oh God, I don't feel good here either. It's still actually
mm,
15 years later, it still brings emotion up because coming back to what you said, Beck, about that maiden to mother archetype, I never saw myself as a mother. I wanted to be a mum, but I never wanted to embrace the mother archetype. I wanted to still be me and still continue on the path that I was on. So to feel so unraveled by this experience was really, really, it was incredibly hard and confronting. But I did what everybody else usually does, which is push those feelings down, keep going, keep going, keep going. Had another baby, kept going, kept going, kept going. And then third pregnancy was, a huge surprise. And I often say that the universe realized that I didn't get the lesson with the first two, so sent me the third. And it was only once the third and my whole world unraveled with that pregnancy that I realized, okay, wow, why can't I accept that I'm not the person I used to be? For me,
mm,
I was still so attached to that 20-year-old version of myself, and I wasn't that person anymore, but I'd never given myself permission or nor did I have the tools to say, I think I've changed. What do I want my life to look like?
mm,
And I think, again, that's what this beautiful word and this movement and these conversations allow us to have these conversations. It says, you're allowed to not know who you are anymore.
mm, mm,
And you're allowed to, and you're meant to take years to find your feet again. Um,
mm.
that's what I wish I had known back then.
Wow. And do you feel like each birth, like I assume each birth changed you in a different way, but what I'm really trying to get at is, did each birth change your identity again and again, or was it that it was the same message? Yeah, okay.
No, so the beautiful thing about matrescence is that with every pregnancy, however it ends, whether it's with a baby in your arms or not, you begin another process of matrescence. You will never be the person you were again. You've
Mm,
changed. And again, I wish we talked about this with miscarriage and all of these secret experiences that we have in our culture, that you have entered a period of matrescence now. Whether it was you were pregnant for 6 weeks or 40, whether whatever
mm.
happened in that experience, your identity has changed. My beautiful teacher, Dr. Aurelie Athen at Columbia University, says matrescence begins the moment you contemplate how motherhood would fit into your life.
Say that again.
Matrescence begins the moment you start to contemplate how motherhood might fit into your life. So that
Mm-hmm.
might be deciding to try to fall pregnant. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
about you, but I remember when I was trying to fall pregnant, it was like I was at work and I was secretly Googling, like, ovulation calendars and whatever. It
Yeah,
shows
yeah.
how,
It takes
yes,
over. Yeah. And
it
it's like, is
takes
it you? Is
over.
it the spirit of the baby? Like, what is it? Like, if the portal opens. Yeah.
The
It's all
portal
part of
opens.
the conceiving. Yeah. One of my teachers and friends, Binny Dansby, she talks about how, I remember when I was like going into labor, she was at my second birth, and I was like, oh, it wasn't going as fast as the first, and first was very fast, and she was like, honey, you've been in labor for like, and it was like more than 9 months, like about 12 months. I'm
Yes.
like, oh yeah, oh yeah. It's so true.
Yeah, it is. And also on the other side of it, there is no official end point of this
Right.
experience. You know, if you ask my
Mm-hmm.
mum, she's like, oh, I'm still going through matrescence. But I
Right.
do think, and you'll love this because of your spiritual insights, from what I've seen after listening to and coaching and supporting thousands of mums, plus all the research that I've read, I do think that there's something about the first 7 years that is the most potent. I mean, you can make sense of it in the way that, you know, by 7, they've settled into school. Hopefully, they're
Mm-hmm.
starting to see, okay, you know, maybe I can start thinking about myself again. But when we look at our energetic chakra development, our spiritual development, that energy between mother and child, they say, I understand, for them to be able to, that they say that that first 7 years, we are basically sharing the energy.
Mm.
Our
Mm.
chakras are connected. There is this very strong spiritual oneness between mother and child for the first 7 years. That base chakra is
Mm.
developed in the first 7 years, and then they slowly become independent. I wish that's something that we talked about more. That this isn't
Oh,
like, you know, my baby's 3 now, I should just be myself again.
this
No,
is
it
the
doesn't
thing,
work like
and
that.
I've been thinking a lot lately, actually, because I'm just 8 months postpartum with my second, but yeah, still feel it with my first.
Mm-hmm.
He's almost 4. Um, the thing, so I tried to do all the things like get all the support and get the village and all of the stuff that we know that doesn't exist. That da, 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 da. But what I've been really reflecting on with my second, because I think with my first, like I learned a lot. I tried to get all that support, but it was COVID and it was impossible really. And yeah. But with my second, I put so much in place. But looking back now and reflecting where I am now, the thing that I've been really feeling into is I feel like when you're pregnant, and I mean, that's a whole other thing. And I don't get me started on the way the Medical Institute looks at pregnant women, like, they don't know how to, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Putting that aside, generally society, I think they respect pregnant women a lot more because they can see what the body's doing. The baby's growing, opening the doors, are you okay? And obviously there's way more that we need to embrace. There's all those memes on Instagram saying it's equivalent of running a marathon per day, blah 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 blah. I think there's a lot more acknowledgement of that. But postpartum, I feel like, because it's so unseen, the thing that I feel like there's no acknowledgement of is the sheer life force that the mother is expelling. And I'm not just talking about breastfeeding. I'm not just talking about nursing through the night or teething, or I'm not talking about the doing. I'm talking about the energetic and physical and hormonal expelling that is happening. And like, even with my husband, he's very, very hands-on, yeah, and I would say like very mature and respectful and like kind of up there with what you would want. But
Mm.
I even struggle, and we've spoken about this, it's like there feels like not many places to point to go, no, this is why I'm feeling depleted, or this is why I need this, or this is why I'm feeling anxious and struggling to get back to sleep. Like, it feels like in postpartum, it's this thing of like, there's something wrong with you, or there's something wrong with me, rather than like, no, of course, this is literally the most normal thing in the world, and it's one of the most difficult things in the world as well. And we'll return with Amy after this short break.
The Inner Temple Mystery School was the most profound, intense, and deeply moving 9 months of my life.
It's really allowed me to feel empowered within my body and also to celebrate life.
The Inner Temple Mystery School has really helped me to show up for myself every day in my practice, deepen my practice.
I've become more connected with the world around me and have started seeing with new eyes.
The Inner Temple Mystery School has changed how I see myself, how I relate to my soul, and how I feel so much more connected to the world around me.
Visit rebeccacampbell.me/mystery school to learn more. Now let's keep returning. This is literally the most normal thing in the world, and it's one of the most difficult things in the world as well.
Yeah. I don't know if you've heard of the work of Dr. Oscar Serrallat. He has done, I do think that his work will have just as big an impact on the world as the work around matrescence. He talks about postnatal depletion. He talks about the actual medical, he's a GP based in Byron Bay who specializes in working with mothers. And he just saw that, 2-3 years postpartum, when he did a full blood work, iron levels still hadn't recovered. Vitamins were depleted, minerals were still not there. And he started to say, we are not acknowledging what that 9-month plus postpartum, maybe the first 40 days or the first 6 months actually does to a woman's body and how long it takes to recover. And he's saying it's years. And that's when we actually know how to look after ourselves, that the level of depletion on a physical level, we don't understand. I think on top of that, if I could add, I think the other thing is that we keep thinking that there's going to be this point where we will feel normal again.
Right.
And I think that that's really toxic. I think it's really harmful to mothers, because we keep, instead of either speaking up or going and getting the help we need or just acknowledging what we're going through, we keep thinking, once they start sleeping through, it'll be better. Once I get to this point, it'll be better. We keep silencing ourselves, Beck. We keep thinking, oh, no, I can't speak up because this point, everything will change. And we get to those points and we still don't feel like ourselves, or we actually, now the baby's sleeping, I'm not sleeping and I don't know why.
Right.
We have to stop pretending and telling women that there's this point you will go back to the way you used to feel. Matrescence is like adolescence, like I said. Once you enter adolescence, you'll never be a child again. There is no going back. You can pull parts of that beautiful inner child with you. You can, emerge knowing who you are, including that version of yourself, but you'll never go back. I have teenagers, obviously, and I have a 13-year-old at the moment, and you see her wanting to be in between these two worlds. Like one day she'll be like, I'm a teenager and I want independence and I don't want you around me. And then the next day it'll be, can I sleep with you, Mum? Can I have a cuddle? And it reminds me.
Yes.
Exactly. And it's just so beautiful to look at through the lens of matrescence, that's what it feels like. I want to be this version of myself. Can I please just go back to when I was younger and it was free and I had independence? No, but actually I really love this. No, but can I, that's okay. It's normal. We need to be able to say, there's no point you will go back to who you used to be. That's not the way it works. But that's exciting. It's an opportunity.
Yeah, right.
Mm.
So can we talk a little bit about, so I really hear you with the split, and my understanding is that it's like who you were, who you like, and then mother, who I am now, who you're becoming. Yeah. So, oh, right. So it's about who you're becoming. Can we talk a little bit about that though? Because I feel, I think that word becoming is key, isn't it? Because it's like when it's like it can take a long time to be the becoming, and you might have no clue. And like, what role does, because I remember particularly in my first birth, and I think from all mothers that I've spoken to, regardless of what the birth is, or even if the baby came to term or anything, there's an initiation that happens regardless of whether the birth goes well, and I'm doing rabbit ears for anyone who, versus it wasn't what we wanted, pregnancy, you know, at some stage there's some kind of initiation. I don't think anyone gets through it without it, right? So for both of my births, my first pregnancy, very traumatic, put a lot of stuff into place, which really helped me have a very empowering birth. And then postpartum, I ended up in hospital, almost died, which was a kind of freak blood poisoning mastitis thing. So, you know, trauma, power, trauma, you know, and I don't know anyone who hasn't had something like that happen in a birth. With my daughter, it was in postpartum. I picked up my son. He was having a tantrum on the high street. I'd done 40 days, like proper, like I saved up all my money, proper replenishment, proper everything. But I didn't know that picking up my son and also having a chronic cough while being depleted could cause prolapse. I didn't know that. I knew about prolapse, but yeah, it felt this boom, drop all of a sudden, and spoke to like all of these people around me. No one really knew anything about it. You go to the doctor and they're just like, it's just what happens when you give birth. Just no support around it. But anyway, segue, go back to the first birth. When I gave birth to Sonny, I remember having this moment when I was crowning, where I saw the cell walls of every one of my cells. I don't know how I saw them. I just saw them. And I saw the barricades around them that felt like ancestral kind of trauma, really. Grief, agony, just like blast open to the ends of the world. And that's what felt like actually happened to me when I became a mum. And for me, the first, like, the fourth trimester, I've found that, obviously it's so full on, but I found that a lot easier than after that, because you're in the bubble, you know, when everyone is there just like, let's keep this baby alive, you know. It's the after bit where you're kind of like, whoa, like every part of my being feels like it's been smashed to smithereens, like
because
my whole being has opened to be a portal for life. No wonder the ancients saw women as goddess. So like, what role does that play of like our lack of reverence to the feminine, our lack of seeing woman as goddess?
Oh my gosh, what a question. How do I even begin to answer that? I mean, I think it plays into everything. In a lot of the work that I do, we talk a lot about motherhood is what feminism forgot. I am card-carrying, fierce feminist and will forever bow at the feet of the women before me. But in our desire to finally being taken seriously and equally, the first and second wave of feminism was about us being like a man. And in that process, motherhood disappeared. You couldn't be pregnant in the workplace. If you are, then you're emotional and you're weak and we won't give you a promotion because you're obviously not going to be here next year. You can't have, you know, be too teary. You can't talk about your baby too much because obviously then you're not going to be respected. So really what I feel is that we're coming into, I hope, and I do really believe this, another wave of acknowledging women and the feminine, that this time we're going to bring all parts of ourselves with us. We're not going to pretend that equality looks like everyone acts like a man. No, equality now is honor this body. I mean, there's workplaces that are not only talking about matrescence, but they're now doing menopause workshops.
Wow.
We're really, I hope, finally going to start acknowledging that this feminine way of being needs to be respected, but also what a female body does should not be shamed or hidden. You know, we really have to start talking about that more openly. One of the women that I interviewed for my book is the head of the Motherhood Center in New York City. And she said, if this had been happening to men, we would have whole universities dedicated to it. But actually, if you Google motherhood studies, there's about 3 courses in the world. Like, how is that even possible?
Way.
Truly.
What?
How is that even
That's
possible?
mental.
That the thing that happens for us all to be here doesn't even have its own area of academia. It's just, it's part of the denial of the feminine, and the power of us is that it's been denied. And then in our push to find our voice, which has been so important, the way we found our voice first was that we had to look and sound and act like the masculine. And so often what I have found, my own experience definitely, but a lot of the women that I've spoken to over the years, is it's through matrescence and becoming a mother that that very masculine energy that we have thought we needed to carry is finally broken a little, and it's scary. I remember for me, not being as ambitious and driven and actually wanting to slow down was scary as hell. Because
so true, because it's like, especially if you've used work as a way to soothe, you know, which I think a lot of people do, or however we busy ourselves.
That's right. And it was my definition of success, like, and my
Right.
identity. So again, if only we could, you know, we talk a lot in my Mama Rising training about whispering matrescence, you know, just these, it's going back to those beautiful ways that we should have been doing, where we have elders, we have
Right.
people who are just women who are just 1 or 2 steps ahead of us saying, hey, you're about to change, and it's going to be huge and it's going to be scary, but you will let go of parts of yourself that you don't need anymore, and you will find parts you didn't even know were there. It'll get scary and dark and hard, but this will be the making of you. Like, that's what we need to be saying.
Yes. And I love what you're saying about because it reminds me of, like, really, like when you hit rock bottom, you're going through a period of grief, and it often comes through, you know, job loss or relationship end or death of a loved one, where it's like everything's crumbling around you. And so if only one thing happened that wasn't so big, you'd kind of like be able to prop it up a little bit. But when everything comes down, it's like those ways of survival, like you just can't do it anymore. And I wonder, you've made me think about like that depletion that the mother has. It's like, I wonder if that's part of, like, I mean, I don't want mums to be depleted, but there is a biological part of it. Where is it by design that we literally can't keep going in the masculine way anymore?
I think so. I do. I mean, I'm sure you know the work of Maureen Murdoch with the heroine's journey. And, you know, my very simple understanding of it is that we come into the world realizing the masculine is the way to be and survive. And we go all the way in, we have wins, we, you know, see that it works to a certain extent. And then something breaks. We realize, oh, this doesn't work. And we have to retreat deep into the feminine to figure things out. And then eventually we emerge balanced again. I think so many of us, it is our health that is the point that breaks. For most of the women, and including myself, it was the physical body that finally said, I can't keep doing it this way. I can't keep pretending that I'm a machine, that I'm not listening to my body, that my health doesn't matter, that finally made me retreat and try and find a different way. So when you say, you know, can we do it without the depletion? I wish I could say yes. And maybe one day in the future when we change the way we honor our bodies, yes. But for most women, this experience of depletion while we're still trying to carry the world as mothers is our initiation into figuring out how to do it differently.
Whoa, that's really big.
Yeah. It's why you see
Mm,
so many mums starting their own business,
right.
because literally they're like, I'm not going
I can't do
back.
that.
I can't
Yeah.
do it. I was the same. I was devastated to walk away from my dream career. But my body was like, no, you
Not
literally
possible.
can't do this anymore, Amy. You have to find a different way.
Mm.
So that's the invitation, I think.
And then the final thing I just wanted to touch on as well. So one thing that I think one of the biggest things that I was unexpecting or not expecting when I became a mum was the stuff that would come up to be healed within me, like from maybe my childhood, pre-verbal, like these pre-verbal emotional things within me. And my current take on that is I think that I really remember, particularly with my son, like he's very deep and intense and he's got like big feelings. And so I think I was definitely, I have that within me too. And I remember my friend Binny was there, and every time I'd walk into the room, she would say, "Here comes the goddess," over and over again. And I would, at first thought that was just like a bit silly, like, I'm not the goddess. Oh, you're so funny. That kind of thing, like just like being nice. And then I really got what she was saying. And I saw in my son the intensity and the amount of love that he came in with, which was like so many, like 1,000 gallons. And I was like, while I was open and in deep adoration of him, I also noticed that I didn't have the capacity to receive all of that love. And, we know spiritually that love is beautiful. It's a massive healer, but it also brings up anything unlike it. And so, yeah, I started noticing just how much the intensity of his love actually made me really sad at the same time. And I wonder how many mothers go through that and are like, why am I so sad? Like, why aren't I happier? This is what I wanted, And I know also I'm not bypassing like the very real hormonal depression, like all of that, like that is existing all at the same time. But yeah, this specific thing that I'm talking about. What's your experience with that?
I think you've explained it beautifully. I know through motherhood, I have finally understood what unconditional love is. Because
Mm,
when I look at them, they can do anything and I will love them and forgive them. I still, 15 years into motherhood, struggle doing that for myself. I think when you see that in their eyes back at you, it brings up that feeling of, oh my God, I've never been loved like that. What does that mean? I know for me, there was levels of worthiness of getting this right. I judged very deeply and still do if I'm not in a great headspace of the moments where I don't want to be a mum today. I think
mm,
what I'm trying to say here is the love towards a mother when we first experience it can feel heavy, very
mm,
heavy with responsibility, heavy with deep worry of what am I going to do? I've never felt like this before. It comes with
mm,
so many layers. And again, we romanticize this idea of a mother's love. Yes, it's profound and it's beautiful, and I've never experienced anything like it. But oh my God, it is a lot to carry every day. and to then realize you don't give that to yourself. Or perhaps there's a lot of women out there who never received that from their mother.
Mm.
And that can also be a huge healing and a huge confrontation to, I mean, gosh, Beck, we could talk for hours. The complexity of this role,
I know.
complexity of this role. And, you know, and I just went into it thinking I'd have a baby and then life would go back
Yeah.
to, we need to talk about it better. And we need to acknowledge that it takes time to fall in love, to find yourself, to figure this out. And yet, at the same time, like all endings and beginnings, there's an opportunity here for us to really go back and look at ourselves and say, well, who do I want to be and what's important here? And, you know, one of the things that I really recognized over all these years of doing this work was that, again, with the feminine, in our culture, we don't follow through a woman's life to the end very well. We're obsessed with the youth, and then we kind of spend the rest of our lives trying to stay as young as possible. What I think this opens up is that we are always in a version of becoming. We're always going to be becoming the next version of ourselves and letting go of who we used to be. And that's both incredibly confronting because we don't have great role models for it, but also about frickin' time.
Totally. Amazing. Oh,
thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to conclude our conversation, even though we could go on, with one final question. What returns you to the wisdom within?
This, again, is constantly changing. When my babies were little, a 3-minute Kundalini yoga meditation was my anchor. I had to, I would lock the bathroom door and I would just do a 3-minute chopping and then breathing. And that was sort of my little plug in. Now that I've got more space and more time, it's a lot more, I'm getting very interested in exploring Mother Nature. I've always been a city girl. If you've known me for a long time, this would be quite a surprising answer. I am not a nature girl. And I'm finding myself like, maybe I don't want to be in the city. Maybe I could live in the country. So I'm finding ways to listen to myself in nature at the moment to bring myself back.
Amazing. Oh, thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you. It's been such a beautiful conversation, weaving all these different ideas together. Thank you. I hope it's landed with everyone who's listened.
Today's soul inquiry prompt is: how are you being called to honor your matrescence or the matrescence for a mother in your life? And what is one baby step you can take in that direction today? Let's share a deep breath together as we close this sacred space. I'm so grateful for you being here. If you'd like to keep returning to yourself and returning here with me, then please hit subscribe. If you love this episode, leaving a review or a 5-star rating really helps others to find it too. And as always, you can find the show notes from today's episode, including Amy's book and all of her work, over at rebeccacampbell.me/podcast. Thanks for returning.